No one just stumbles onto Azhura. It isn't a planet you notice while casually gazing at the night sky. It waits at the farthest edge of vision, faint and wounded, a scar glowing faintly in the heavens, a wound that never heals. To modern astronomers, it's nothing more than a distant sphere, a cold gas giant wrapped in storms that never end. A textbook object. Numbers, mass, orbits. Stale. Safe. But the ancients never saw it that way. For them, Azhura was not another wandering light among constellations. It was the Watcher, the sentinel of the end, the boundary stone of existence. It wasn't background, it was warning. A presence that pressed on the mind, heavy, insistent, unforgettable. And here's the unsettling question: what if the ancients were right? What if Azhura isn't what we've been told? What if it isn't a planet at all, but a mechanism? Not a prison of stone and storm, but a spirit, a machine designed to bind the essence of living beings in endless repetition. A cosmic lock, invisible yet unavoidable, woven into the hidden machinery of existence itself. The Sumerians named it Ashka, the devourer of memory. The Vedic seers called it Kalaratri, the night of time. The desert mystics of the Third Age gave it the simplest name of all, the lock. Across centuries and continents, civilizations that never shared alphabets, trade routes, or gods somehow shared the same fear. Azhura was not a creator. It was a jailer. Not a benefactor, but a judge who sat at the threshold of death. The Greeks whispered of Kronos. The Persians feared Zervan. The northern tribes spoke of Skuld. And behind each mask, the same figure lurked, the warden of cycles. Every fragment, every half-burned scroll, every cracked tablet tells the same story: beware the eye in the outer sky, for it turns the wheel of men. They warned that to gaze upon it too long was to feel tides not made of water, but of memory itself, a pull that reached not for the body, but for the soul. Azhura was never feared because it was far away. It was feared because, in some hidden way, it was always close. Not in distance, but in design. Not in space, but in the architecture of the human spirit. Long before Azhura was reduced to a neat line in an astronomical catalogue, it lived in stories. Not theories, not numbers or whispers. Tales traded beside fires, etched into stone, carved into ritual bones. The ancients didn't describe Azhura as a planet at all. They described it as a gate that never opens. In the crumbling tablets of Urt Column, a city swallowed by the desert sands 5,000 years ago, Azhura was named Ashkotal, the mouth of the void. Priests warned that the unworthy dead would not simply vanish into flame or darkness. They would be devoured by forgetfulness itself, consumed by the hunger of memory's erasure. The Vedic hymns echoed the same warning, sung in valleys that never once saw Azhura with the naked eye, yet describe it with unsettling precision, the shadowed orb watching from the edge of the heavens. They named it Kalaratri, the night beyond time. In their verses, it was not a place of liberation, but of judgment. He who clings to form shall be bound again. He who clings to memory shall be sent back. The Watcher was not mercy. It was the weight that dragged the soul back into flesh. Even among the wandering tribes of the Third Age, far from temples and scholars, the story endured. By their campfires, children were told, no one truly dies. Every death is simply a turning of the lock. Every birth, the same door creaking open again. They named it simply the lock. For them, reincarnation was no gift. It was punishment. An endless reset, a refusal of release. And here lies the astonishing part. These myths scattered across deserts, mountains, oceans, and centuries are consistent. Civilizations that never traded a word, never shared an alphabet, never crossed each other's paths, all told the same tale. Babylon, Vedic valleys, the Medic plains, the ice fields of the north, each whispering of the same boundary, the same prison disguised as a star, the same hidden warden in the sky who feeds not on flesh, but on cycles. Coincidence? Or memory older than memory itself? Azhura was not feared because it was misunderstood. It was feared because, in some buried place, humanity already knew the truth and had always known it too well. If Azhura were nothing more than a lonely planet on the edge of the solar system, its story would have ended with the myths of forgotten tribes. But it didn't. Its shadow stretches further far beyond story and into structure, into symbol, into the very geometry that shapes human culture. The ancients didn't need telescopes. They had intuition, and that intuition left marks. Patterns that repeat across continents, across centuries. Patterns too precise to dismiss. Take the hexarch, carved into obsidian near the ruins of Nippur. Scholars wave it off as ornament, but those who study hidden traditions know better. 6 points. 6 stages. Birth, growth, decay, death, forgetting, return. Not a star, not a flower, but a wheel disguised as light. A sigil of the Watcher. Move east into the Vedic plains, and the symbol shifts. There it becomes the Kale cube, a blackened stone around which pilgrims circle 7 times, chanting verses about breaking the bonds of return. Official histories call it a harvest rite, but the old texts whisper another meaning. They call it the stone that binds the endless road. To circle it was not devotion. It was imitation, a rehearsal of the soul's orbit around the Watcher itself. The cube endures everywhere. Judges draped in black robes. Priests stepping into square sanctuaries. Kings buried in basalt tunes shaped like cubes. A symbol of order, yes, but also of containment. The square has no exit. The cube has no escape. Perfection sealed into stasis. And then there is the sound. Ancient chants designed to open awareness almost always fall into 6-fold rhythm. In Babylon, in Egypt, in the Druid caves of the north, the same pulse repeats. A rhythm like an echo from beyond Earth. Today science hears it too. NASA records Azhura's radio emissions signals that should be random, yet fall into patterns. Play them back, and it's not static. It's cadence. A chant. A mechanical heartbeat. Symbols endure because they bypass logic and slip straight into the subconscious. You might not notice the hexagon etched in a cathedral window, or the cube-shaped shrine at the heart of a holy city, but your mind does. And somewhere deep in ancestral memory, you remember what those shapes mean. The mark of the warden. The design of the prison. For those who could read the code, the warning was clear: the Watcher doesn't rule with chind. It rules with geometry, with rhythm, with symbols so ancient they shaped the very boundaries of thought itself. Science was supposed to end the superstition. Telescopes, equations, fluid dynamics, all of it designed to strip away the mystery and reveal the universe as simple mechanics. But when the modern gaze turned toward Azhura, the myths didn't vanish. They sharpened. At the planet's pole spins something no other world possesses, a storm shaped like a perfect hexagon. Not a circle, not chaos, but a 6-sided figure etched into atmosphere, steady as stone. It has spun there for centuries, unbroken, as though carved into the sky by design. To meteorologists, it's fluid dynamics. To mystics, it was proof. Architecture where only chance should reign. Alchemy felt the pull long before science had the words. The adepts tied Azhura to lead, the heaviest and most stubborn of metals. Lead was the stage of Nigredo, the blackening. To the uninitiated, a curse. To the wise, the beginning of transformation. But many alchemists confessed their fear in code, that they would never escape it. That they would remain bound in leaf forever. Bound in Azhura's cycle. And then there is the sound. Every planet hums with electromagnetic song, but Azhura's voice is different. NASA's probes picked up deep pulses of bursts that should have been static, yet repeated with eerie regularity. When converted into audio, they revealed something unsettling, not noise, but cadence. A rhythm that throbbed with mechanical precision. A tone that felt less like weather and more like language. Mystics had described this centuries before. A Babylonian priest called it the drum of the sky. Vedic chants fell into 6-beat cycles that mirrored its pulse. Tibetan adepts warned that listening too long would drag the soul into sleep. Modern science only confirmed what they already feared: the Watcher doesn't just turn the wheel of time. It speaks. And the most chilling part? Its voice is constant. Even when we ignore it, it hums on. Every second. Every moment. The background of the universe itself. Science may dress it in formulas and waveforms, but the truth is harder to escape. Azhura is not chaos. It is design. Not everyone who gazed upon Azhura saw a lifeless world. Some claimed to see more. A throne. A seat of judgment not meant for kings or emperors, but for something older. Something darker. Something patient enough to wait eternity. The first whispers came from visionaries and mystics, men and women who dared to look too long. In 1279, Brother Iran of the Black Abbey recorded his solstice vigil. He wrote that his soul was drawn upward like a thread into a spindle. When the stars dissolved, he stood before a throne of black obsidian, suspended in endless void. No figure sat upon it. Only a cube of stone pulsing with whispers. And the voices were many, not one. Thousands layered in rhythm with his heartbeat. They repeated the single command: "You will return, you will return." Days later, his writings were seized, and he was burned for heresy. But Irene was not alone. In 1614, a Florentine alchemist named Parasino claimed to have built a bronze listening tube that captured Azhura's voice. His journals described not static, but commands and instructions embedded in sound, urging obedience to cycles. His last words trail off mid-sentence: "The throne is not empty, it is and nothing more." That same night, he vanished. His workshop stood untouched. His life erased. In Tibet, the depths of the Crimson Path chanted of the same vision, a black throne guarded by time-eaters. Every soul, they warned, was brought before after death, shown its failures and bound again by threads of karmic debt. Karma, they insisted, was not natural law, it was enforced servitude, ruled by the judge in the sky. Even the secret lodges of Europe knew the story. Their initiation spoke of the cube of return. Blindfolded, initiates walked in circles, while drums pounded 6 beats. Only those who broke the rhythm, who refused the cycle, were said to glimpse the hidden door and pass the trial. Worse never escaped. Scattered across centuries, cultures, and continents, these visions form a single tapestry. Azhura is not just boundary, not just symbol. It is throne. It is judgment. The architect of a prison vast enough to swallow death itself. And those who truly saw it rarely lived long enough to tell the tale. This rewrite leans into the eerie, almost hard documentary tone, giving each vision a cinematic mini-story to hook the audience while reinforcing the larger theme of judgment and repetition. Would you like me to push forward into Section 6, the machinery of forgetting next, where we reveal Azhura's true power in memory theft? Every prison has guards. Every cycle requires enforcement. For Azhura, the chains are not iron. The walls are not stone. Its weapon is more subtle, more terrifying: forgetting. Ancient texts describe this with disturbing clarity. In fragments of the Codex of Azhura, the soul after death enters the Hall of Echoes. There, memory is stripped away like garments. The text does not call this mercy. It calls it theft. The watcher takes what you were, that you may walk again in ignorance. The Egyptian papyri echoed the same warning. The underworld was not just a journey of courage, but a gauntlet of erasure. The dead were offered cups of water, pools of reflection, lullabies sung by spectral voices. Each drink, each song wiped fragments of memory. Only the strongest refused. Only those who clung to remembrance could escape the cycle. The Gnostics were the boldest. They claimed the light at the end of the tunnel is not salvation but a snare, a projection designed to trick the soul into compliance. The dying see loved ones, hear soothing promises, feel an irresistible warmth. But this warmth, they said, is the reset switch. Once accepted, the soul is pulled back, reborn, its memory erased. The Cathars of medieval France whispered the same fear. The greatest sin, they taught, was not rebellion. It was forgetting the rebellion. To remember across lifetimes was to weaken the chains. To forget was to strengthen them. And they believed forgetting was not natural decay, but broadcast, a vibration carried from the heavens, transmitted by the watcher itself. Modern accounts echo these ancient forces. Survivors of near-death experiences often report the same thing, a presence urging them to go back, to try again. They speak of overwhelming peace, of a choice that never really felt like choice. And afterward the memory fades. The details blur. It is as if something erases the record before it can harden. And that is the true horror. Azhura does not bind by force. It binds by erasure. For a prisoner who remembers can resist. But a prisoner who forgets, he doesn't even know the cage exists. The machinery of Azhura is not fear. It is not pain. It is amnesia. A prison so complete, its captors believe they are free. If Azhura is a prison, then the question is inevitable. Is there a way out? For centuries, the answer seemed hopeless. The myths all spoke of cycles, of forgetting, of judgment without appeal. And yet, scattered like sparks across history, there are whispers of escape. Not many, but enough to hint a hidden door. Some traditions speak of souls who refused the lullaby. They did not follow the voices of death. They did not accept the drink, the light, the promises. They resisted the rhythm and stepped past it. The Tibetan adepts told of wanderers who broke the wheel, escaping karma's threads. In secret lodges of Europe, initiates were taught to resist the 6-beat drum, to walk against the rhythm of return. Few succeeded. But those who did were said to vanish, not into rebirth, but into freedom. Others believed the key lay in memory. If forgetting was the cage, then remembrance was the weapon. Cathars taught that to recall past lives, to hold memory across the veil, was to weaken the prison's hold. Gnostics claimed the ultimate act of rebellion was to recognize the light of death as deception and turn away. To remember the trick was to break it. And maybe the truth is simpler still. A prison holds only those who consent to be prisoners. If awareness cannot be measured, then awareness cannot be chained. The Watcher may rule cycles, but it cannot rule the one who sees the cycle for what it is. Perhaps this was the hidden purpose all along. Perhaps Azhura is not only jailer, but teacher. Not only the lock, but the test. For only by recognizing the bars of the cage can one search for the door. Only by refusing the comfort of forgetting can one walk through it. The storm will continue to spin at Azhura's pull. The hum will continue to pulse, steady and mechanical, at the edge of the solar system. The cube will continue to cast its shadow in symbols, in rituals, in the very architecture of our lives. But somewhere beyond that rhythm, there is silence. Somewhere beyond the cycle, there is the last door. It is not out there in the sky. It is within. And the key has been in your hands all along. If Azhura is truly the cosmic prison, then it should have disappeared with the tribes who first named it. Yet it didn't. Its shadow has followed us, carried not just in myths and symbols, but in rituals still alive today. The Watcher's mark hides in plain sight, embedded in the world's holiest traditions, disguised as devotion. Among the desert tribes who birthed some of the oldest monotheistic systems, the seventh day was not originally a day of joy. It was a day of cessation, silence, stillness, rules that forbade movement, labor, even fire. The scrolls call it holy, but all the fragments reveal another word, closer to binding. The Sabbath was not liberation. It was imitation of the Watcher's law, the pause, the freeze, the demand that time itself bend to the warden's rhythm. Every week humanity honored the prison unknowingly, faithfully. In the chaos shrines of the east, pilgrims circled a black cube of stone, chanting hymns of surrender. Scholars explain it as devotion to harvest gods, or as a symbol of the world itself. But the hidden sects whispered otherwise. You circle because you are already circling. What you worship is the wheel itself. They believed the ritual was not worship of divinity, but of the prison's design. Even Christianity carries the imprint. Priests cloaked in black. Square altars. Cubical reliquaries that seal fragments of saints. The courtroom echoes the same, judges robed in black, issuing judgment from within a squared chamber. Coincidence? Or inheritance? A shadow of the same law, judgment, order, restriction. The hexagon, too, was never forgotten. Flattened, it became the star. Raised into 3 dimensions, it became the cube. Woven into stained glass, carved into amulets, etched into sacred diagrams, the mark endured. To the uninitiated, decoration. To the initiated, the Watcher's brand. Even our calendars bow to the warden. The week itself ends in his name Saturday, Sabbath, the 7th day. The reset of cycles, encoded into time itself. Humanity does not merely whisper the Watcher's law in secret. It celebrates it openly, ritually, endlessly. And that may be the Watcher's greatest trick. Not ruling by chains, not by fear, but by worship. A prison perpetuated by prayer. If Azhura's symbols bind the body, its true machinery binds something deeper, time itself. Unlike the wandering planets nearer to us, Azhura moves with a patience that borders on cruelty. To complete a single orbit around the sun, it takes nearly 30 years. For the ancients, who measured life in decades, this was more than an astronomical number. It was a lifetime, a full turn of the Watcher's wheel. Astrologers called it the Great Return. Every 30 years, they said, Azhura revisited its marker, and when it did, judgment followed. Monarchs fell, cities burned, empires withered. And on the level of the individual, debts resurfaced, truths could no longer be hidden, and the cycle demanded payment. No one escaped the Watcher's clock, but the outer orbit was only the surface. Inside the planet itself, the machinery was even more terrifying. At its pole spins a storm, a 6-sided vortex, each side like a blade of an invisible wheel, and it has rotated for centuries without fading. Not for years, not for decades, but for ages. Perfect. And broken. 6 sides endlessly turning. Scientists marvel at its stability. Equations describe it as fluid mechanics. Yet to the mystics, it was always clear this was not weather. This was architecture. A lock sealed into the sky, its geometry is relentless as a machine. And what is time, if not a wheel? What is reincarnation, if not an orbit? The ancients insisted Azhura was not just bound to cycles. It was the cycle. the enforcer of repetition, the metronome of existence. From the east came the doctrine of samsara, the wheel of death and rebirth. From the north, weird of the weaving of fate by three unseen sisters. From the Mediterranean, Ankh necessity, the inescapable law. Different languages, different myths, but the same conclusion: life does not march forward. It circles. And always, at the edge of the heavens, the watcher keeps the rhythm. Modern physics echoes what the ancients whispered. The deeper it studies matter and energy, the clearer the pattern becomes: decay, return, transformation, orbit, spiral. Even the brain itself works in loops, memory coiling back on memory. Everywhere, the universe curves. And nowhere does it curve more visibly than at Azhura's pole, where the wheel turns without end. This is the prison not of stone, not of symbol, but of time. And the greatest cruelty is not the repetition itself. It is the forgetting that comes with each return. For a cage without walls is still a cage. And a cycle without memory is no different from chains. If symbols are the watcher's mark, and time its machinery, then sound is its voice. And unlike myths or geometry, this voice is not silent. It speaks even now. Every planet hums with electromagnetic song, but Azhura's is different. When NASA's probes passed its shadow, they recorded bursts that should have been random static. Yet what emerged was not noise. It was rhythm. A curtain so precise it resembled a mechanical chant. A pulse that did not sound like nature, but like intention. Long before technology confirmed it, mystics warned of the same thing. The Babylonians called Azhura the drum of the sky, striking bronze plates in 6-beat cycles to echo its pulse. Vedic priests chanted hymns in identical rhythm. Tibetan adepts warned their disciples, do not listen too long, for its hum carries the soul into sleep. And perhaps this is the cruelest truth of all. The watcher does not need to force obedience. It sings it. Its voice reaches every living thing, not through ears, but through essence. The Cathars called it the voice of return. The dying hear it as comfort, a lullaby, an invitation to go back, and almost no one resists. Even now the transmission does not stop. Every second, every heartbeat, it hums. The background you mistake for silence may not be silence at all. It may be command. The ancients carved one warning into clay, a phrase most scholars dismiss as poetry: do not trust the music of the sky, for it is the song of your captor. And yet, if all of this is true, the possibility remains. A prison that relies on forgetting can be beaten by remembering. A song that lulls the soul can be resisted by awareness. The watcher may control cycles, but it cannot control the one who sees the cycle for what it is. The storm will spin. The cube will echo in our temples and our courts. The hum will pulse across the void. But somewhere beyond the rhythm lies silence. Somewhere beyond the cage lies a last door. It is not in the sky. It is within you, and the key has been in your hands all along.